Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones. I got another good news flash for you. The mayor of Chicago, we call her Beetlejuice, she will not be re-elected as mayor. She's the first mayor of Chicago in 40 years to not get reelected. Now, of course, there are two other candidates who are running. There's an African American, of course, one is a older Caucasian fellow, both leftists. Now, as you know, Chicago is a segregated city like Baltimore is. And generally, I'm just going to say it, a number of the Black females that ran in elections this year got beat. They just can't run anything. That's a fact. Look at Rochester, Baltimore, DC, Atlanta, New Orleans, Chicago, Portland, all run by females. The only female that's really running a hell of a state is Kristi Noem. But again, you have to look at that state. It's not as deep in population. However, it's less regulated, less taxes. So when you don't have a lot of constraints, it's much easier for your population to actually build an economy. And once an economy is built and it's functioning very well, you have more taxpayers. So again, the government can get out of the way. Now, with all these other urban areas that have been run by Black women and, of course, Black men, all have high crime rates. The education system is poor. If you don't believe me, look at Baltimore. Now, okay, there was a lot of bad politics that took place in Baltimore, Chicago, all these other urban areas. And Blacks were running the urban areas. So today, I'm just going to focus on Beetlejuice, Lori Lightfoot not being reelected. Let's get into it. This is from Reuters, a reputable news source. Chicago's incumbent, Mayor Lightfoot, loses re-election bid. Now, you have to also remember, there were a number of candidates running. Now, in the state of Illinois, let's even break it down further. In the city of Chicago, none of the candidates reached 50%. So the mayoral candidates will have a runoff on April 4th. Now, February 28th, Chicago's incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot lost her re-election bid on Tuesday with vote totals showing that two of her rivals will face each other in an April runoff ballot. Paul Vallis, the former public schools chief in Chicago and Philadelphia, who ran unsuccessfully for mayor in 2019, secured the top spot, taking 34.9% of the vote, with 91% of the precincts reporting, and that's what the Chicago Tribune reported. Brandon Johnson, a Cook County commissioner and an organizer for the Chicago Teachers Union, secured the other spot in the runoff race, taking 20.2% of votes. Lori Lightfoot only had 16.4% of vote totals, and there were not enough votes outstanding for her to make up the ground between her and Johnson. Polls showed public safety is by far the top concern amongst residents of the third largest U.S. city. Now, the campaign has tested Democratic messaging on policing in the United States 3 years after widespread protests following the police murder of George Floyd, and months after Republicans sought to bludgeon Democrats over the issue in the 2022 midterm elections. Now, the Chicago race is technically nonpartisan, but every candidate identifies as a Democrat in the heavily left-leaning city. Lightfoot, the first Black woman and first openly gay person to serve as the city's mayor, is bidding for a second four-year term. She emerged as a surprise victor in 2019, campaigning as an outsider who would end corruption. But her handling of crisis, including the COVID-19 pandemic, racial justice protests, a protracted teachers union strike, and a spike in crime, sapped her popular support. There were more than 800 murders in Chicago in 2021, the most in a quarter century. The homicide rate dropped 14% in 2022, but remained nearly 40% higher than in 2019. Lightfoot has said the 2022 drop in murders and shootings shows that her strategies, such as hiring more officers and focusing on illegal guns, are having an impact. Natalie Pauls, 53, a healthcare worker who voted in downtown Chicago and declined to say who she cast her ballot for, reflected the sentiment of many voters when she said that crime was a top concern. But she did not think any single candidate really stood out for her. I want someone who is going to manage the police in a way where we are not seeing African Americans mistreated, she said. Lightfoot has clashed with the police and teachers' unions. The police are backing Vallis, and the teachers endorse Johnson. Vallis is running to Lightfoot's right, while Johnson is courting the progressive vote. Now, Vallis' campaign website asserts the city has been surrendered to criminals, and he has vowed to hire more officers and increase community patriots. His focus on safety has put him on top of most polls. But Lightfoot has attacked him for telling an interviewer in 2009 that he was more of a Republican than a Democrat. Now, in a recent advertisement, Lightfoot accused Johnson of wanting to defund the police. The ad cited a 2020 appearance in which he described the slogan as a real political goal in the wake of the Floyd protests. Now, as a mayoral candidate, Johnson has responded by saying he wants to spend more resources on programs such as mental health treatment, but does not intend to cut the police budget. Now, with all that being said, let me give you my commentary. Chicago is a segregated city, again, just like Baltimore. It's heavily Black. Now, of course, you have Vallis and you have Johnson. Now, when Blacks go out to vote, they always vote for symbology because the person is Black. They want to have the first Black in there. But here's the problem. They're not listening to what the progressive Blacks say. A number of Blacks out here, they believe in socialism, the welfare state, and that attributes to the high crime rates. Now, again, the whole system in the United States when it comes to politics is corrupted. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. The only way you're really going to fix anything is you can't be tempted to put your fingers in a coffer. In other words, line your pockets. Well, that's very hard because let's just be honest. Government is very dishonest. This is why we don't trust government. Yes, do you have some corrupt police officers out there? Absolutely. Now, dealing with capitalism is a good system. The problem is you have a number of greedy people who become crony capitalists, and that's on both sides of the coin. You also see that both sides, when it comes to politics, both want welfare. Yes, there's corporate welfare on the right and social welfare on the left. But who is getting all the money? Well, it's very simple. The politicians. They've been bought and sold, your political action communities. A lot is taking place in these urban areas. Meanwhile, if you drive on a street in an urban area, because I can tell you right now, I was in Indianapolis working, and some of the cities' streets are horrible. They can't fix their city streets, they can't fix crime, but somehow they can line their pockets. Back in 2004, when I lived in the state of Maryland, lived in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, Bob Ehrlich was governor then, Republican and former congressman. What happened in that state? The city of Baltimore. And Maryland only has 23 counties. And all 23 counties were subsidizing Baltimore. And Baltimore has lost almost half of its population since the 1950s and 1960s. At one time, Baltimore had a population inside the city of 905,000 people. Now they're right around, I'm going to say 570,000 people, putting them at right around the 29th or 30th largest city in the nation. Now, of course, none of these politicians in the city talk about economy. Certainly, safety is a main priority. It should be. It should be one of the main priorities. But what about building businesses? You see, one thing I can tell you, Black people, when it comes to voting, they vote with their feelings. They don't listen to what a Black person is saying. They might say something that is off the rocker here, but they can be a smooth talker, a pastor, like the senator from Georgia. They can dress well. But see, Black people will vote for them because they look like you. They look like me. But they're talking that same nonsense. They really don't care about what's going on in the community. Why? Because they're lining their pockets. Again, who's getting the money? Special interests. Politics is a dirty game. Now, yes, Mayor Lightfoot is a terrible mayor. But Rahm Emanuel, he wasn't any better. Mayor Daley, I believe there was a Black guy, I think his name was Harold Washington. He died in office. He had a heart attack. Anybody from Chicago, you quote me on that. I could be wrong because, I'm from the East Coast where we had Martin O'Malley and Donald Schaefer, and Kurt Schmoke, and Dew Burns, the mayors of Baltimore. And then you had Rollins. It's real pitiful that our cities that were once an economic force have gone down the drain. Now, granted, when it comes to Black people, certainly the system hasn't treated them right. The redlining, no jobs. I mean, do you really believe that a number of individuals out here really want to commit crimes? I don't believe that. I believe that a lot of the baby boomers out here, and back a little further, have lined their pockets. And I'm talking about the early baby boomers who were born between 1945 and maybe 1955, ones who are retired right now. They got all the benefits. They could stay at a company for 30 years and get a pension. Now the well is dried up and wages are low. You see, what a lot of people don't understand is, okay, we look at the politicians. Now, I'm no fan of Lightfoot, but I have to look at the policies on economics. Look at Illinois alone. Illinois is basically like Indiana if you take Chicago out of the mix, because you have a number of individuals in Illinois who are down to earth people. But it's that one place, Chicago, that puts progressive individuals in power, and it just tears that state apart. While here in Indiana, where I live, we don't have that problem. It's a red state. And now you have states around me like Ohio. Ohio is purple, although it's been red for the last few elections. So you have to look at the state of everything. You're in the Midwest. You have to see if they're still manufacturing products. It's not just the service industry. See, the service industries really don't have the opportunities to make money for people who didn't go to college. And the bottom line is when you cut programs like the VOTEC, home economics, industrial arts, had those programs when I was in school. Those programs gave you an opportunity to work with your hands. So not everybody's gifted to go to college. In fact, college right now is more of an indoctrination fest, depending on what you majored in. You can learn a lot without going to college. In fact, there's topics, and shout out to Angry Man and Hardcore Tito, Brother Nate, Trey, I didn't even learn in school until I got on YouTube. Because see, when you go to school, whether it's public school or college, they don't really teach you anything. They teach you what they want to teach you. Now, again, with Chicago, Johnson, he has been supported by the teachers union. Now, any person who was a so-called educator, he would be a candidate under suspicion to run for mayor. Because what does he know about policing? What does he know about transportation? You see, it's more to being the mayor than just understanding education. See, when you are a mayor, you are the chief executive officer of that city. So that means you run everything from the school system, the court system, the police. So who are you going to elect as a police chief? In fact, I believe a police chief also resigned because he wants the next administration to pick somebody. Well, like I said with Mayor Lightfoot, you can be the first Black female, the first lesbian female. I don't care about that symbology. She didn't get the job done. Certainly, crime may have gone down a little bit, but it's still high. It's an urban area. When you have policies that are pro-criminal, citizens who are innocent or law-abiding citizens, they can't catch a break. But yet they're going to work paying all the taxes to fund your administration, and you can't get the job done. I don't care what race you are. The bottom line is when you are in power, you're supposed to be in power to serve the people. Remember, we have representative government, so we say, so on paper, but government hasn't really been representative. You look at this administration now, the Joe Biden administration, it's a horrible administration. You could say what you want about the 45th president, but at least the economy was good. And when the economy is good and everybody has an opportunity to make money, generally, crime is reduced because people have a chance to make money. But when people aren't making money, you're going to have a lot of crime, a lot of desperate people, regardless of any race. Ever since this president has come in office, I've seen more mass shootings at schools. Reason why? It's a lot of issues. Number of kids They're on social media too much. They're socially awkward. They don't know how to have a conversation with human beings. They don't know how to interact because they're on Facebook, Instagram, they're on their phones, they're texting. The bottom line is, cannot have a well-run society without human action or human socialization. You need social skills. All these politicians in Chicago, I don't care who you put in that city, you're not going to change anything unless you change the culture inside your administration. I don't care whether it's Democratic or Republican. You have to see that when you're taxing people at a high rate, you're going to lose citizens. It's funny because I live here in Indiana. Gas is cheaper over here than it is in Chicago. One time it was $3.09 here and still $4 over in Chicago. Nice place to visit, but I wouldn't live there. Chicago's a segregated city. And I just want to say this. If you're Black and you're running for office, I wish you all would stop talking from a touchy-feely standpoint and start telling it like it really is. Start saying, well, nothing's going to change unless we have some economics, and we need some Black people with some money, whether it's a celebrity. Now, I can't depend on celebrities to go into politics because a lot of these Black celebrities, they have all the money in the mouth, but they won't go back and help other Blacks out. But yet they are talking about defunding the police themselves because they can pay for their own security. A lot of hypocrisy. Your lower income folks need the police officers. Now, again, are there some corrupt police officers? Absolutely. You get them off the force, you put them in jail. But you need police. I don't care what anyone says. And when it comes to training, that's up to the police chief. You know, get somebody to work up a SOP, standard operating procedures manual. But again, when you're doing that job, there's a lot of adrenaline. And as a police officer, even as a fireman, those are jobs that you don't know if you're going home that night. Because it's just like being at war in the service. You can be gung-ho one moment and be coming home in a box the next moment. And it's the same way about police officers. Very dangerous job. Some people can't handle that job. But in the end, Lori Lightfoot lost because she was always getting in arguments, even with some of her own constituents who were Democrats. I saw a video where her and one of her city council individuals went nose to nose. She wouldn't listen to one of her city council individuals. Now, you remember, we have a parliamentary system here in America. You can be impeached as a mayor from your city council if they vote to impeach you. But when you don't listen to your city council people, your police chiefs, you're going to be voted out. I'm glad she's voted out. Again, Rahm Emanuel, Obama's boy, didn't do any better. Now you have Johnson and you have Vallis. Johnson, I'm going to be honest with you. He's Black. He's a little younger. They're going to be in a runoff. But again, if you live in these cities, you need to be tired of these progressives running your city. If you're going to vote for Johnson, look at his record. Don't vote for him because he's Black. Vote for him because he meets the criteria. And then when these individuals get in office, whether it's Vallis or Johnson in Chicago, what you have to do, you have to make sure that they're going to do their job. That's what we all need to do with our politicians. And it needs to start locally. You can't have a politician sit up there and tell you what they're going to do on the campaign trail, and then when they get elected, don't do anything but cater to special interests. But in the end, Lori Lightfoot got beat because she was an ineffective leader. When you start losing support, it's time for you to go. Because in the end, when you're the mayor, you're the chief executive officer in your city, and all the eyes are on you. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some educational content like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, check out my second channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, if you cannot find the 411 Talk Zone radio show or the QCIS channel on YouTube, check on Twitter. As soon as I record a video, I also post my videos to Twitter. Now for the QCIS channel, since it's an educational channel, you can also find me on LinkedIn. And in the end, be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. Once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.